The last couple days we've been working on pictographs. Today we're going to switch gears a little bit and we are going to start learning about bar graphs. So in a pictograph, you have pictures that are on the graph, and in a bar graph, you have a graph that has bars on it. So we're talking about nice big thick lines that show us how many people voted for different options. Let's take a look at one. All right, first I want to point out a couple really important things. At the top of our graph, we have a title. It tells us what the graph is about. So this one is about the favorite type of movie that people have. On the bottom of the graph, you're going to see labels. These are also really important. These labels tell me what each bar represents. So the green bar is comedy, the blue bar is action, and so on. If I didn't have the labels, this graph wouldn't make any sense. On the left side of the graph, there's two important things. Number one is you see the numbers along the side on the left. That helps me to know how tall those bars actually are. That if I didn't have the numbers, then the comedy bar could be 4,000 people. I don't know because it didn't tell me. So having numbers along the side is really important. Beside those numbers, you see a label on the left side too, and this label says people. That tells me that they were asking people what their favorite movie was, and here's the number of people who said, this is my favorite kind of movie. They could have been asking water buffaloes. I don't know. So it's important that you say what exactly you're measuring on the side. So according to this graph, how many people said that comedy was their favorite type of movie? Yeah, right, so you start at the top of the comedy line, you move across the graph in a nice straight line to the numbers, and you see it lines up perfectly with that 4. Good. How many people like romance the best? Right, 6 people like romance the best. Let's do a trickier one, you ready? How many people like action the best? Well, this one is on a line that is between the 4 and the 6. You're all smart kids and you know what number is between a 4 and a 6. So how many people choose action? That's right, 5 people. All right, let's go on to our next graph. We can see from the title that it's about favorite sports. So people voted and they said what their favorite sports are. You can see the different sports they asked about on the bottom of the graph. They didn't ask about every single sport. I might not have chosen one of these ones if these were my only options. And along the left side, you see the numbers and you see the label on the side that tells me they were asking people. Hey, that's handy. So looking at this graph, can you tell me very quickly which sport was the most popular sport? Yeah, you can see very, very fast which one is the highest bar, and that would be soccer. Which is the least popular one? Good, it's hockey. So that, along with a couple other clues, tells me that this is an American graph, definitely not Canadian. And how many people liked tennis the best? So line up the tennis with the line, go across to the number. Good, 5 people liked tennis the best. That's the one I would have voted for too, out of all these ones. All right, last graph. This is another birthday graph. We did one a couple days ago with a pictograph, but now this one is a bar graph with different data. So along the bottom, we have the months. They are written out so that we know which bar stands for which month. At the top, we have a title. And again, on the side of the graph, we have numbers. And it tells us that this is the number of students. That's interesting because they didn't just go out and ask a whole bunch of people this time. They specifically asked students. All right, which month had the most birthdays? Go really fast. Yeah, June did, good. Which one had the least amount of birthdays? Perfect, August. And how many birthdays were there in November? Good, 4. Can you find 2 months that had the same number of birthdays? Yeah, there's a few that you could have said. So January and April had the same number. February and November had the same number. September and December had the same number. and May and October had the same number. I think that's all the ones that are the same. You can see it very quickly just by looking to see which bars are the same size. Hopefully that gives you a really good introduction to bar graphs. Now let's go into your book and let's do a little bit of work. We're doing our introduction to bar graphs today on page 189. You're going to start doing question number 1. Now, just looking at this bar graph, it looks a little bit different than some of the bar graphs we already looked at. Bar graphs can have the numbers along the side like this, and the bars go up, or the numbers can be at the bottom, and the bars go from side to side. Both of them are correct, and you need to be able to figure out how to read both of them. So in this one, you're going to answer these questions by looking at this bar graph. In number 2, you're going to use this bar graph to answer these questions. All right? One of them says 2 students have red hair. Draw a bar for them. So the red hair one has not been drawn yet. You'll need to draw that. And then you're going to do number 3, and you're going to do from A down to E. These ones down here, the notebook ones, you do not have to do those today. But up here, you're going to use this table, this data, to fill out this bar graph. Now, you'll notice the numbers on this bar graph are on the bottom. The labels are on the side. That means your bars are going to go from side to side on this bar graph. After you've filled out your bar graph, then you can answer these questions. And finally, you're going to come down here and you're going to use this tally chart to make a bar graph. Now remember, when we're doing a tally chart, each of these counts for 5, and then there's a couple extra. So the count means what number is this? 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 7 would go here. Now, this bar graph needs to have a title. You need to tell me what this is about, and you'll know what it's about if you've read your question carefully and you've taken a close look at the the tally chart. Again, we have the labels on the side and the numbers on the bottom. So your bar graph is going to go, your bars will go from side to side. Finally, you will write you'll answer some questions. So which sport has the most data values? That means which one got the most votes. And how can you find that from the graph? Looking at the graph, how do you know that that's the one with the most votes? And here, write 2 conclusions Amy can make from her data. That means what's 2 things that she learned from here? What is 2 things that she can say looking at this? That's all your math today. Have a good afternoon, guys.